What are people's suggestions?
I don't know how to say these words.
So what are people suggesting?
Lots of games actually. Tiny Toons, Lion King, Donkey Kong Country vs. Vector Man.
So which games are we gonna do?
Well, the one I think we should do is Ghouls and Ghosts vs. Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
I don't know. Those games are pretty similar.
But we do similar games all the time.
But we only have so many puppets.
Well, what if we focused on something specific?
Like what? Since both games are both incredibly difficult, we focus on which game is harder?
Ghouls and Ghosts is a platform run-and-gun game developed by Capcom in 1988. It's part of the Ghosts and Goblins series. The series as a whole is known for its difficulty. It's unique in that you're supposed to die a lot. It forces players to use caution and learn patterns instead of just plowing through levels. Ghouls and Ghosts, the second game in the series, was originally released for the arcade before being released on various platforms, including Sega Genesis. It received very favorable ratings for its home releases.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts was released by Capcom in 1991 and plays much like its predecessor. It was exclusively for the Super Nintendo and is the third game in the Ghosts and Goblins series. There have been many re-releases since the game came out and is one of Capcom's highest selling games. Two classic games of a highly celebrated franchise. Which one's better? Let's find out.
The Sega game looks great. This is an excellent port of the arcade game. Everything looks pretty good here, from Arthur to all the various monsters you have to fight. The bosses are all larger than life, making them all look imposing. The levels have a creepy, spooky look throughout the game. For maintaining the excellent look of the arcade, Sega definitely has the better graphics.
Sure, your game looks just like the arcade. Just too bad it's so outdated compared to mine.
My game truly improves on the look of the previous game. Since this was direct to console, this game has a much sharper 16-bit look to it. Everything looks better. Arthur, the enemies, the larger-than-life bosses, and especially the levels. The environment really comes to life and plays a major part in the game. Super Nintendo truly has the better graphics.
I think it's time we discuss difficulty.
For graphics? Okay.
I like ice cubes, I like bricks, I like metal too, I like it hard.
Whoa! Is that what we're calling this section?
Yep.
Really? I don't know. Might just be me, but that's kind of weird. Maybe something else.
You don't like it? I guess I could change it.
Yeah, you do that.
Well, in the meantime, let me tell you why my graphics make the Sega game harder. Sometimes you can't tell if something is in the foreground or in the background. You can't tell if something is just scenery or if it's there to kill you. This keeps you on your toes and makes the Sega game harder.
Yeah, I don't think they did that to keep you on your toes. It's just designed bad, and it's probably due to the limitations as a port.
On the Sega game, there were lots of color and background graphic details that were omitted when it was ported. The Super Nintendo game, being made for the console, doesn't have any of those problems. With better looking characters and levels, graphics go to Nintendo.
Well, Sega's presentation is pretty good. On the screen during gameplay, you have your score, top score, time, weapon display, lives left, a charge bar when appropriate, and a reminder of what difficulty you're playing. You also have a map of the world showing your progress in the game. You have your first ending, and then you have your true ending. Solid presentation.
Once again, Nintendo improves on your simple game.
During gameplay, all icons are neatly placed on top of the screen and not scattered everywhere like Sega. No top score or difficulty taking up a necessary room. I also have a map of the world. I even have the first ending and true ending as well. But my game has an intro, something the Sega game does not have.
Looks like we need to talk about which game is harder.
Don't just give to me. Don't you scare to me. Don't you scare to me. Oh, give it to me hard.
That's the new name you came up with?
Pretty good, huh?
No, there's still something not quite.
Fine, I'll change it again.
That's okay, I can do it.
No, I don't mind. Anyways, here's why my presentation makes the Sega game harder. Sure, there's no intro which tells the story, but you know what that does? It takes away your motivation to beat the game. You don't know you're saving a princess. He could be on his way to the grocery store for all we know. Not having that story, that motivation, makes the game harder to play.
That's not why the intro wasn't included.
The intro wasn't included because the Genesis couldn't handle it. The arcade game had an intro, but Sega's limitations made them cut it. With less screen clutter and a cutscene for the intro, best presentation goes to Super Nintendo.
Even though there are some limitations, the Sega captured the sound of the arcade well. It can be menacing. It can be light and playful. There can be a real sense of danger.
Well, the Super Nintendo was an original soundtrack, with much better quality than the Sega game.
It sounds orchestral, as opposed to 8-bit. It can be mysterious and eerie. It has a great sense of urgency and doom. Both games do share one song, and it's much better on the Super Nintendo.
I think it's time to discuss why the Sega sound makes the game harder.
Oh no.
Get your coat on, get your shoes on, get your gloves on, but most of all, get your heart on.
You gotta be kidding me.
I don't think you're getting it. It's like that song, Get Your Freak On.
I'm well aware of the works of Missy Misdemeanor Elliott. What you did was just bad.
Alright, I'll rename it again.
No, no more. I'm naming it from now on.
Oh, come on! I worked hard on that song. Just give me one more chance.
Fine. There's only one more section anyways.
So this is why my sound makes the Sega game harder. It's all in the sound effects. When you attack something and it isn't hurting them, it makes this noise. But sometimes, when you are hurting the enemy, it makes the same noise. Am I hurting him or am I just wasting time? It messes with your senses. It makes the Sega game harder.
They didn't mess with the sound effects on purpose. That's just poor sound design.
The Super Nintendo game has all the right sound effects. With better orchestrated music and proper sound effects, best sound goes to Nintendo.
Since my game's a port of the arcade, I'm sure it has more features than the Super Nintendo game. The Sega game is really hard because you die in 2 hits.
Also in the Super Nintendo game,
In Sega, you can get various weapons to change gameplay.
have all those weapons in Super Nintendo too.
Do you have armor upgrades that let you charge your weapon for a powerful attack?
I have multiple armor upgrades with charge attacks.
Well, my game even has humor.
So does mine.
Well, my game's so hard, you have to beat it twice and get an item in order to get the true ending.
Same on Super Nintendo.
Well, can you shoot your weapon in 4 different directions?
No, only 2 directions in Super Nintendo.
Well, looks like the Sega version's the better game.
That's one thing. The Super Nintendo game has lots of features the Sega game doesn't have.
One feature you'll notice right away is the double jump. This adds a whole new depth to the gameplay. In addition to charge attacks, armor upgrades also improve your regular attack. You can also get shields to block attacks. There are more levels on Super Nintendo too. The levels are also much longer. The Super Nintendo has the better gameplay.
Yeah, but you're forgetting one more feature. The incredible amount of slowdown. One of the worst enemies this game has isn't something you can kill. It's how often this game slows down. This game has got to be the record holder for game with the most slowdowns. It's ridiculous how often it occurs.
My game only slows down because it has so much going on.
My game has more enemies. My game has a living environment. Put all that together, and you're gonna have some slowdown. It might occur a bit too much, but it doesn't ruin the game. It's just the price you pay for pushing 16 bits to the limit.
So push the 16-bit to the limit. But is it harder?
Oh god.
Which game is hot like a rock? Or a giant rooster statue? Hot like a giant
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
What? Statues are hard. And I happen to remember those statues from my old family road trips.
We're just calling this section which game is harder.
Wow, that's so creative. However did you think of that? Anyway, the Sega definitely has the harder gameplay. You can only jump once in the Sega game, making it harder to avoid attacks. And being able to attack in 4 different directions increases the directions enemies come from. It's not just left and right. Now you have to think up and down. More directions for enemies to attack make the game harder and more true to the spirit of the franchise.
4 directions? That's nothing compared to how hard the Super Nintendo game is.
First off, attacking in only 2 directions makes my game harder. Enemies still come from all different directions, but now you can only attack left and right. It makes my game much more difficult. Since this game isn't an arcade port, it was made to be longer and more challenging. It's much more difficult to get through Super Nintendo's longer levels, and the fact that I have more levels means even more opportunities to die. The Sega game is a walk in the park compared to my game. With more gameplay features, longer levels, and more difficulty, gameplay goes to Super Nintendo.
Both games are good, but one game is better, and that game is Super Ghouls and Ghosts for the Super Nintendo.
The Super Nintendo game improved on the Sega game in every way. It has a better overall look, more cutscenes, and a nicely orchestrated soundtrack. It improved the gameplay with weapon upgrades and a much welcome double jump. It even managed to make a harder game. The Sega game is fun too, but there's just less to do. The difficulty isn't as high and the payoff for beating it isn't as satisfying. It's a simpler game because it was an arcade game. It probably didn't make that game too long or too hard, so more arcade goers would play it. Also, in fairness, the game was released 3 years before the Super Nintendo game, so there was a lot of time to make improvements. With everything improved on the Super Nintendo version, best game goes to Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Thanks for watching our latest video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And thanks to everyone who suggested Ghouls and Ghosts versus Super Ghouls and Ghosts. And keep those other suggestions coming too. We will get to them. Also, check us out on Facebook and Twitter, behind the scenes stuff. Later.